This is a $5,000 burger. I competed in the National Hardware Show in Vegas in the Celebrity Cookoff, turned in this slider, and took home $5,000.
The grand finale, the big tuna, our first place slider. My jaw dropped to the floor when I took a bite of this. I looked around, I think everyone had the same response. It may come as no surprise, with a dominant score, Chef Christie, MonumentGrills, Girls Can Grill with the first place slider as well. Congratulations.
The lineup of judges was incredible. Chuck from Chuck's Flavor Train, TFTI, Chef Bonotto, who was on Food Network, plus several others, high caliber judges. And TFTI afterwards actually said this is the best slider that he has ever had. Let me show you how I make this Thai-inspired cheese stuffed slider with a Thai basil, mint chimichurri sauce, and spicy mayo. There are three main components that make up the $5,000 burger. There is the burger patty itself, there's the chimichurri topping, and the spicy mayo. Let's go over the ingredients for each of those components. The patty starts with a pound of ground pork. You can grind the pork yourself, or you can buy it from the grocery store like I did here. Then the burger ingredients may look a little bit overwhelming, but they're not that bizarre. One of the really key ingredients though is fish sauce. So if you're not familiar with fish sauce, it's basically fermented anchovies and salt. And it's in a liquid form and it just adds a punch of flavor. If you're a little intimidated by anchovies, don't be. Chefs around the world use this and you probably don't even know it. If you like Caesar salad, you like anchovies because it's in the dressing. So we're gonna use a tablespoon of that, and that is gonna add a flavor bomb to this meat. To counterbalance that punch, we've got some sweetness, which is just a tablespoon of brown sugar. Then we've got ginger, shallot, garlic, lime, and a serrano pepper. Actually, just a half a serrano pepper. You don't need the whole thing unless you like it extra spicy. So that's what I've got in the bowls right here. For the lime, we're using both the zest and the juice. And then even though the anchovy has some salt, I am adding a teaspoon of salt as well. We're gonna combine all this to make the blend, then we're gonna put it on these rolls. The rolls are really important. These are from the bakery section of my local Kroger or Smith's grocery store. They're called hard rolls, but they're not actually hard. They feel a little bit hard on the outside, kind of like a baguette, but inside they're super soft. For cheese, we're gonna use some shredded mozzarella. Let's move on to the chimichurri. It honestly has a lot of the same ingredients, just a little bit different quantities. So it's got the same chili, it's got garlic, shallots, the lime juice and lime zest, salt and pepper, and some red chili flakes for a little bit more heat, and then rice wine vinegar and olive oil. But the key to chimichurri is the fresh herbs. So we're using cilantro, which is oftentimes used in a chimichurri, but we're also using mint, which gives it just a little bit of a sweetness. And super important is we're using Thai basil. This is not like Italian basil, this is Thai basil. It still smells similar, but it has a little bit of like licorice or anise notes, and it's kind of more of a sturdy leaf, and it's gonna hold up great in this dish. So this is a Thai mint basil chimichurri instead of the normal chimichurri that you might be used to. And then the last ingredient is the spicy mayo, which is simply Japanese mayo. You've got to get the Japanese style. It's just so much better for this dish, and some sriracha sauce. We're just gonna mix that together to spread that on top. Let's get started making these patties. As I mentioned, I've got fish sauce here. I've got the brown sugar. I've got 1 tablespoon of minced ginger, about a tablespoon of minced shallot, 2 cloves of minced garlic, the zest of 1 lime, plus the juice of 1 lime, half a serrano pepper minced up. You could also use jalapeno, you could use a Thai chili, it just depends on your heat level, but this is what I used in the competition, and a teaspoon of salt. And then you just wanna get in there and mix it all together. You can do this part in advance if you'd like to, and then just like let it sit in the fridge. Like you could do this a day ahead of time, and then it'll actually flavor the meat even more. At the competition, I did not have that luxury. We could not do anything in advance. And honestly, things kind of got down to the wire because I couldn't even pre-chop or pre-zest or do anything with the vegetables. I had to bring them in their original form, do everything on site. So that took almost as much time as grilling the burgers themselves. It was a lot. I probably should have brought like an electric mincer, like a food processor type of thing. That probably would have saved me time because in the end, I was hustling to get the burgers totally built and ready for the judges. We had an hour and a half, and we had to do 7 sliders for the judges, along with 7 appetizers. And then we had to be prepared to serve like 20 or 30 portions to the crowd. And let me tell you, the crowd was ready and waiting. They could smell us cooking it and they wanted it immediately. That's it. No need to overmix it. You just want it blended together so that every bite gets some of that flavor. I'm gonna go put this in the refrigerator and then we're gonna make the chimichurri. All right, let's make the Thai mint basil chimichurri. So I've got a big bowl here. I'm gonna add the other half of the serrano pepper. I've got 8 cloves of garlic. This is really a garlic and herbaceous forward sauce. I've got another tablespoon of shallots. This is the zest and juice of 1 lime. I've got a teaspoon and a half of salt, a teaspoon and a half of black pepper, plus a half a teaspoon of red chili flakes. I'm not gonna add the vinegar and the oil yet. First, we're gonna add the herbs. So here is the mint and the Thai basil. And then all of this is the chimichurri. And what I like to do is actually kind of remove the stems. They're totally edible. You can eat them. I just find that I like the texture of just the leaves better. I did the same thing with the mint and with the basil. So toward the base, they definitely get a little bit harder. The ones towards the top, you don't have to worry about so much. But I kind of grab them here at the bottom, take out any like brown ones, because sometimes that happens, you know, it's a big bunch. But I break off this big amount. And almost done. Just like I said, just get the thicker ones. Okay. And then you're just gonna come in here with a chef's knife and kind of give it a coarse chop. You could do this in a food processor as well. The only issue with that is that these leaves are kind of delicate. So if you do it in a food processor, it really makes the leaves kind of bruise a little bit. With a knife, really the only contact you're making is the slice. In a food processor, they just get jarred around a whole bunch. And yeah, it's just a little bit more rough on them. I find that the texture and the flavor is a little bit better if you do it by hand. Now for the competition, I was super detailed with my knife chops. I wanted every bit to be about like 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. I'm not gonna be as disciplined for this YouTube video. I just want you guys to have the general idea. But if you are doing competition, barbecue, grilling, any type of food sport, really your knife cuts do make a difference. A lot of times judges are looking for that. But for now, this is good enough. And sometimes good enough is good enough, even though I'm throwing some of it on the floor, but that's okay. Now I like to just give this a little bit of stir, and I'm gonna add in my rice wine vinegar. Make sure that if there's big chunks of garlic, you kind of get that mixed up. And then we've got a 1/2 cup of olive oil. So that was a 1/4 cup of rice wine vinegar and a 1/2 cup of olive oil. You want it to be liquidy. If it's a little bit too like thick, you can add more olive oil. And then just give it a taste. If you add too much olive oil, you might need to offset that with a little bit more vinegar. Now, based on what I'm seeing here, this is a little too thick to me. So I am gonna add some more olive oil. I'll just start with a couple tablespoons because I do want it to be a little bit more loose. And the reason that it's not gonna be exact is because I didn't measure the herbs. I just took a bunch of cilantro, one of those bunches of mint, and a bunch of Thai basil and pulled it all together. All right, just a little bit more in here. So in all, I've probably today done about 3/4 cups of olive oil. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a taste. Woo, that's got a good kick to it. Acidic from the lime juice and then the heat right from that serrano chili pepper. If you want, you can de-seed the serrano chili so it's not quite so spicy, or like I said, use a jalapeno that's a little bit more mild. But this is ready. One more component that we've gotta make, and that's the spicy mayo. This is honestly the easiest component. You're just gonna mix some Japanese mayo. I kind of eyeball it with some sriracha sauce. So I probably have like 1/3 cup to maybe a teaspoon of sriracha and a pinch of salt. Don't forget to salt your food. Just mix that together until it's kind of pinkish. Give it a quick taste. Yeah, perfect. Now we're gonna build the burger. I know that might seem a little bit confusing, like how are we gonna build a burger before we even cook it? Well, if you guys follow a lot of live fire folks on social media, you've seen this technique before. What we're gonna do is cheese stuffed bread that's gonna go on the grill. So we're gonna take these rolls, and bread to meat ratio is super important when it comes to a burger. I'm not gonna cut this in half because I only want there to be a little bit of bread on the top. So I'm just gonna take off the top third. This will be our top bun. See how skinny it is? Super thin. Now for the inside, I don't want to put a burger on this. That's so much dough, so much bread. We're actually going to take the inside of this out. We're just using the shell of the bread, just like that. You can save this, you can eat it, you can make breadcrumbs out of it, whatever you want. Let's just do this with a couple more. Again, just dig right in there. There's no science to it. You don't have to be perfect. We're just kind of making a cavity. When I served these at the competition, each judge got their own burger, but the crowd only got a quarter of a burger because we just couldn't make that many that fast. We're gonna take mozzarella cheese and pack that inside. Usually you probably think of a slider that's got the cheese slice on top. This has the cheese slice inside. Let's do that with all of these actually. You really want to pack it in there and press it in there. When this hits the grill, it's going to get nice and melted. You can try this technique with any kind of cheese, any kind of burger. This is just what I did to win the competition, but you could definitely put cheddar cheese in here, pepper jack cheese, you name it. Get creative. Now that we have our cheese stuffed bun, I'm going to take a ball of meat. This is about 4 ounces. I'm going to flatten it like I'm making a patty. And then I'm going to press it right on top. And it's really important with this technique that you go all the way to the edges and you're really kind of sealing that cheese in there so that it doesn't ooze out when this hits the grill. Again, make a ball, flatten it up like you would be making a patty, and then press that right on top. This recipe is enough to make 6 burgers. I've got the 6 burgers ready for the grill. During the National Hardware Show Cookoff, I was representing MonumentGrills and I cooked on their new Eminence 425. I love how it's kind of a slate black color that's really chic. This is a gas grill. I'm gonna turn the burners to medium low. I monitored the temperature throughout the cook because it takes a little while for these to cook through. They are pretty thick, but you don't want to burn the buns and you don't want the cheese to melt out. So you're just going to kind of monitor it. And the goal is to get an internal temperature of the meat to be around 160, 165. Once it hits that mark, it'll be time to build the burgers. So let's get outside to the Monument Grill. On the Monument Grill, you simply turn the dial until you see the flame and then you push the igniter. It'll light all of your burners for you and then just go ahead and reduce that heat down to about medium low. And then you can take a look at the thermometer that's on the lid of the grill and we're aiming for a temperature anywhere between 350, 400 degrees. Once it hits that mark, we can add the burgers to the grill. So I've got the burger, I'm putting it down and pressing it down. So meat side down, press it down. We're just gonna spread these throughout the grill. We've got all 6 burgers on the grill. We're just gonna let them cook until they reach that internal temperature of 160 to 165. And we are gonna rotate these throughout the cook. These have been cooking for about just over 20 minutes. Temperature needs a little bit more time. That one looks good. I flipped the burgers over just to help the cheese that's all the way on the bottom inside of the bun get melted. And in the meantime, I went ahead and put the top of the buns right on the top rack. We're gonna close this down. The burgers are off the grill. It's time to fully assemble them now. So I'm gonna take that spicy mayo and give a good smear right on the top bun. And then I'm gonna take some of this Thai basil mint chimichurri and put that right on top of the meat. And you can get some of this extra oil dressing as well. And then go ahead and add the top. That's it. This is the $5,000 burger. It's a Thai-inspired cheese stuffed slider with mint chimichurri and spicy mayo. All right, should I break it open or should I take a bite? I'm gonna go ahead and break it open because I want you to see the cheese pull. It's gonna get kind of messy here. But check this out. It's cheese stuffed and stuffed and stuffed. Let's go in for the bite. You can hear the crunch from the bread. It's soft on the inside, but crunchy outside, giving it so much texture. The meat is so tender and juicy and packed with flavor, and that chimichurri sauce and spicy mayo just puts it over the top. This is one of those burgers that definitely requires extra napkins. I just can't stop eating this, you guys. I'm so serious. If you guys make this, you have to let me know. Hey, be sure to hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss out on more recipes like this. That's it, guys. This is the $5,000 burger. You can get the full recipe at girlscangrill.com. I will leave a link in the bio.